Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me. This video is essentially a part 2. If you didn't see the construction of this book, then I will go ahead and put both of these videos in a playlist and link it up the top here. And if you want to see the construction, then you'll have to watch that video first. So we essentially created a book that has 4 top-loading pocket pages and a little flap here. Now you'll see this is a completed version of the book, and the flap that I have here is significantly smaller than the one here, but I'll go over that in detail in a minute. Based on the dimensions and the cuts that we made in that video, this is the album that you get, this size with this size flap. And it has a pocket in the front, some top loading pages, a tag pocket in the middle, and some pockets in the back, and tags in the top loading pockets. So if you're like me and you grab a paper collection and hope that it is going to cover your entire book, this is what we ended up with. There are quite a few scraps. Here's the rest of the sticker sheet. And there are a lot more pages. So some of course are the smaller ones, but there are some pretty large size scraps here that could be photo mats or tags or decoration in the book. There's another larger one. I still have some cut aparts. So today we move on to the book that we made in our last video, and you'll see that I wanted to remember to put the magnet on, so I tried to put the magnets on, but they are so strong that that it pulled right off of my tab. And so I'm gonna wait until I cover this tab and the front to kind of anchor the magnets down. These are the neodymium magnets. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I get them on Amazon. I get this size and a smaller size in a pack together, and I can link those below. These magnets are great, and they are self-adhesive, so they have an adhesive on them already. A lot of times I will add a little bit of adhesive, but it makes it a lot easier to kind of construct wherever your magnets are going to go if it has just that little bit of adhesive already there. So this is the point at which you want to decide if you're going to round any of your corners. So if you want to round your corners, you need to go through your book right now and round them. You know, there's quite a few in here on the flap and of course on the pages that you can do that. And of course you just have to remember to round them, round your designer paper before you glue it down. So sometimes in my books we get to this point where I'm ready to decorate, but at the same time there are still some elements I want to add, and sometimes those elements go on top of a sheet of designer paper. So we have a couple of those today. You can see here that I have all of my pieces cut, I think, and ready to go as far as getting the book covered. But first, I have a couple things that I want to do. I have the construction of pocket pages and a fold out kind of accordion that goes in, and then a couple of other things here that we'll go through in a minute. The reason that I cut down the flap from this size which is what the instructions called for, to this size is because I'm going to go ahead and use one of these frames to make a shaker on the front of the book. And this is something that like I always think of doing, but never really like stop and can figure out how to construct it. And I just happen to have these matching. Actually, this is from the A Magical Place collection, and this is Magical Adventure that we're using today. But that's why I cut that down, is because I wanted to be able to put this little frame here on the front and have it kind of centered, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And today I'm going to bring in my scoreboard. My scoreboard is going to help me remember to tell you the dimensions and also show you where I scored some of these pages. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide where I'm going to put my pockets. And you'll see in our completed version, we have this page. And essentially it's a pocket, and I made a little hinge to glue it onto this page. Not really in the middle of the gusset. So this time what I did is I made two of these, and they're going to go right next to each other. So I'm going to decide where to put those. So essentially what I have here is two pieces that are the same, and they are 4 1/4 by 9.5. So of course this was an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I cut it down the middle lengthwise. And I wanted to have it inset a little bit, because I want a tab when we glue these down, fill the pockets, I want a tab or something that's poking out here. So I wanted to make sure that it was that it would be inset in the book so the book could close. So I went ahead and cut my paper lengthwise, but then I cut about 1.5 inches. I cut 1.5 inches off of the end. And then I scored it at 4 3/4. So once again, what we have here is two pieces that are the same. They are 4 1/4 by 9.5, and they are scored at 4 3/4. And then to make it easy to glue in the book, I just made some hinges, some paper hinges. So these are 4 1/4 by 1.5. And I just scored it down the middle at 3/4 of an inch. So two pieces, 4 1/4 by 1.5, and scored down the middle. So we're going to go ahead and glue these in. It's my scoreboard. I'm going to do it in this middle page. So here's my front. Here's the second page. I'm going to put them right here. And I haven't even made the pockets yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to grab my glue and just glue along these two sides here, the top and the bottom essentially. And then it'll be a side loading pocket. And then one more. See where the end is there. So we have our two pieces. Make sure that you know where the opening is. And the reason that we're gluing these down now is because we want to be able to add these hinges, and then make sure that we cover the seams of the hinges with our designer paper. So we need this in here before we put our designer paper down. And you can do these hinges inside or outside, whatever way you're comfortable with, whatever makes sense to you. I am going to go ahead and glue this down. Let's see. I'm going to glue this to the front of the pocket, making sure I know where the pocket actually is. Line it up on the top, the bottom, and the side, and use my surface to kind of get it even there. And then I'm going to prep this other one as well the same way. So I have my pocket here, glue this to the front, and hopefully they'll both fit in this page. Now, of course, you can do one of these. You could put one here and one here if you wanted to. I just thought it would be a little different to put them both in here in the middle. And now I'm just going to line them up and make sure they're going to fit inside the book. And it looks like they are, as long as we get them glued correctly. So when I glue this, I'm going to glue it down so that this scored part of the hinge lays right in the bend of the paper. And so we just have this hinge because it's going to lay on this page. And then I will fold it this way and make sure that the top aligns with the top of the page and that it aligns in that groove of where the page bends. Hope that makes sense. And then this other one, I'll do the same and align it at the bottom here, and hopefully they'll both fit. So I'm just gluing the tab. Again, this is what it looks like. I have the hinge glued to the front of this pocket. If you can see it without the shadow. I'm just going to glue it right in here. Kind of lean it into that score of the page where it bends. And let's see, I'm going to pull this up. And then I just want to align it with the top of this page here. You're going to have to give this a minute. Make sure you burnish it down. There it is. I was looking for this guy. Some fluff on there. Open it up and burnish it down. So now we have one, and I'm going to go ahead and just burnish it from this angle as well, just so the paper knows where it needs to go and it can still fold down. And we're going to do the same thing to this one. Here's our pocket. We glued the tab in the front. I'm just going to glue this down the same way. And this is going to lean right up against this one, so it might be a little bit of a tight fit. I'm going to pull this up, lean it against it. Kind of even it up against the bottom of this page. Burnish it here and here. And there we have it. If you want to put a little notch in this, you can, but I think we're just going to have some tags in here that have pulls, so that won't matter so much. So that part is done. And we have two other pieces that, actually it's 3 pieces, but 2 other pages that we want to do before we glue down our designer paper. first, we have this front pocket. So you see the front pocket here. And I just have a piece of cardstock that is 4 inches by almost 6 inches. So basically it is cut about 1/16 smaller than 6 inches. So just a sliver, just to kind of get it so that it fully sits in here behind this front page. Here, so I think we're good. And I made this pocket long enough so that I could, or large enough so that we could put some cut-aparts in portrait. And, you know, they could be secure, but also you can see kind of the tops of them. So, and of course you don't have to put the cut-aparts in there, but I'll show you how to put these pockets in. Again, we have 2 pieces that are the same size. So first we have one that is 2.5 by almost 6 inches. And second we have one that's 2.5 by almost 6 inches. So again, we're gonna glue these in. And that about the 1/16 of an inch that we took off really is just gonna allow us to set our paper just kind of right in between those 2 seams. So we're just going to glue 3 sides here. And just set it right in to this score line and make sure you line it up at the bottom. Again, we'll flip this page to make sure we can't see it from the back of the book, just for some extra, just for an extra glance from a different angle. I believe that's right. And I don't see it at the bottom there, so I'm just going to go ahead and burnish it down. And then we're going to do the same thing for this other one. Again, this is the same size. We're going to glue it down somewhere near the middle. Now, if you are confident that you need a 3x4 cut apart, or, you know, a specific size of photo to go in this top pocket, then you're going to want to measure down, and then remember that the bottom of the pocket will have glue on. And remember, we are going to cover this with paper, so the bottom of this seam you're not even going to see, or the bottom of this pocket. It gives the illusion that the pocket is wider, or I'm sorry, deeper. Here I have the second pocket, which I think goes to right about here. So the pocket piece, the white piece of cardstock, is back here, and it goes to about this mark. And then, of course, it's glued down, so really the area of the pocket is to right about here. So this gives the illusion that the pocket is deeper than it actually is. We have 2 pieces that are 4 1/4 by 11. So each one of these is scored the same way. And this was designed specifically so that a 3x4 cut apart can lay in here with a little bit of a border around it. So if you have 4x4 cut aparts, you'll want to adjust the size, and you won't get this length from one sheet of 8.5 by 11. But this is for, you know, you can definitely play with the sizing here. And I just had this size of cut apart. I know a lot of newer collections have the 4x4. So You can definitely adjust this piece, you know, adversely. You don't even have to put this in there. I just really like an interactive accordion, and I feel like they're kind of easy to make. So here we are going to score our 11 by 4 1/4 piece of paper at 3 1/4, 6 1/2, and 9 3/4. Again, that's 3 1/4, 6 1/2, and 9 3/4. And these are easy. This one is the same, squared the same way. 3 1/4, 6 1/2, 9 3/4. And what you end up with is a piece here at the end that is 1 1/4 inches. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take this tab. Well, first you're going to fold and burnish, and really at this point you just want to loosen up those fibers. The fold doesn't have to be you know, going in the correct direction at this point as far as the accordion is concerned. We are going to take this 1 1/4 inch tab, and we're just going to glue it to this page this way. So I'm going to put some glue. And we want to put this again into the fold, but not over it. So I'm gonna kind of set this up so I have an area that I can just kind of slide it in and line it up at the top and the bottom. And there we go. And now is the point where you'll go ahead and figure out how you're gonna fold your accordion and make sure that they're all in the right direction. So the next thing we have to do is glue it down. This is in the middle of a page though. So let me show you on our completed one. I have the accordion, whoop, we're past it, here. And you can see that that little tab is glued down to the paper inside here. And then I put another piece of cardstock to frame another 4x4. So what we need to do is we need to decide what the background paper is going to be on this page. We're going to glue that down, and then we're going to glue our accordion tab into it. So let's figure that out. So now we need our book base. I have my 2 pockets. Here's my first page, second page, my 2 pockets, kind of are independent and not. And then I'm going to put my accordion on this back page. So I went ahead and I already cut down my pages, and I'll go over the dimensions of these with you in just a moment. Generally what I do is I'll stack them up, so as I flip through them, the piece that I'm looking at is the piece that you're going to see. It gets a little confusing, I think, with double-sided paper to know. If you have a ton of sheets, sometimes I'll just put a small Post-it on the part that I'm going to see, and that way I know which side to glue down. If you are not too worried about kind of the order of your pages, then you know, you do you. I'm just going to kind of decide what page I want this accordion to be on. Again, the accordion is in the middle of the page, so it does take up a good portion of the page. And that doesn't really matter unless you have something something of visual interest like this design here. I didn't want to put an accordion here and kind of cover up that whole big piece. I think that if I keep this book for myself, that I'm not going to put photos or anything on here. I just kind of like the look of it. So let's see. And I know that I have a few pieces that are going to be the covers, so I could use one of those. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the photos, or the cameras, sorry. Now, because our book pages are 5.5 by 8.5, my pages are cut at 5.25 by 8.25. And we'll talk about that again in just a minute when I go over the dimensions for all the other pieces. But if you're cutting down your sheets and you have one collection that you're working from, one designer collection, it is a good idea that when you're cutting down your pages, you pay attention to the orientation, and that way you can kind of decide what cuts in what order maximize the amount of paper that you'll be able to use in your book. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to glue this guy down. And this paper is pretty sturdy itself. I don't know what how many pounds it is. It's like, maybe it's 80 pounds, but, and I definitely don't know the GSM, but I think that using these sort of designer paper collections really allows us to create a mini album out of cardstock rather than chipboard. And we put so many pieces of paper, you know, layering it up, that it's super sturdy. So here's this. And now I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I want this. And in the finished book, you notice I had it in the middle. But maybe I'll just put this one towards the bottom, just, you know, for a little difference. And remember that it's going to sit this way. So you're going to have to glue your tab in away from the end of your page. Essentially, I mean, you really could glue it to the end if you wanted to, but I want a little bit of clearance, and I'm going to try to center it down here at the bottom, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not going to measure. So, just about there. So I'm going to take my tab, going to glue it down. Oh boy, that would have been bad. I'm not really sure what that voice and the words were that I just used right there. So I'm going to just eyeball it so that it is straight-ish. I'm trying to see at the top, because that definitely makes a difference if you have some lines in your photo or in your paper. Glue that or burnish it down. And then the last thing that we have to do here is we have to create a back piece out of white that will cover the rest of this so that so it matches. When you open it up, the last page will be the same size and happen to be adhered. You could definitely start by gluing down this full page, but I just kind of liked the way that that the design of this ended up with the two pieces for the accordion that were the same size. So I don't seem to see where I cut this piece, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. Again, these are sized to frame a 3x4 cut apart. So we are going to cut our paper to 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. Just move this out of the way and glue that down. Now, if you don't want to do this part, you can definitely just put a cut apart on top. I just like to have the framing of all of the pieces about the same. So that's why I do it this way. And make sure that it matches. It's hard to see the top of this because it's a white paper behind it, but I think that's good. Just gonna burnish that down. And now I feel like our book construction is complete. If you created the book with the dimensions that I instructed in the last video, then you have a flap here that is 8 1/2 by 2 1/4. So you will need 2 pieces that are 8 1/4 by 2 to cover the front and back side of this flap. But because I did it this way and chopped part of it off, I just went ahead and cut a piece that's 3/4 by 8 1/4 because this flap is essentially 1 inch. But let me show you what I did. This is where I didn't think through when I chopped it off where the magnet would be. So I ended up gluing the magnet on here, which seems fine, right? But when I glued this magnet down, I wanted to make sure that it doesn't peek through if I use a 3/4 inch piece. So I cut this down to 1 inch essentially, and I will kind of groom it as appropriate. And this is the first piece that I'm gonna worry about when I start to cover the pages. So the last dimensions that you need to know, I think, are these, and these are the covers. So the covers are a little bit larger than the pages, but they're still 8 1/4, but they are 5 3/4 wide. So this is essentially 8 1/2 by 6 inches. So you want 8 1/4 by 5 3/4 to cover them. And again, I hope it covers up my I don't think it's going to cover up my magnets, but that's going to be okay. I'm not going to worry too much about it. And I will say that you're going to have a couple pages where they're going to be the front inside cover and the back inside cover. So you're going to have to do a tiny bit of math because that's not right. Excuse me. You're going to have to do a little math because, so you have 4 of these sheets that are 8 1/4 by 5 3/4. 2 of them though, because they are the inside front cover and the back, they have pockets. So you're going to have to cut those down. So essentially what I do is I just eyeball it, but we know that this sheet is 4 inches tall. So I'm just going to chop 3 3/4 inches off of this bottom piece. And I'm going to glue that down here. So it has a little bit of a framing behind it. But now this piece, you're either going to have to slide into that pocket or you're going to have to cut a little bit off. And because it has this pattern with the bows, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off, but from this side, just to make it look a little cleaner, but your designer paper may not have the same issue. So I just wanted to let you know that you don't have, it's not necessarily going to use the entire sheet. There we go. And then the same with the back here. We know that these are 2.5 inches. So these are going to be this is going to be a 2 1/4 inch strip. And then what you're going to do is you're going to measure this whole area. Let me explain. Just like I described earlier, we have our pocket, which is however many inches, but this kind of covers that area above the pocket and the entire front of the pocket. So while this one is going to be 2 1/4, this one is going to be longer because you're going to allow for about 3/4 of an inch down underneath this pocket. So let me go ahead and do that with you. Of course, this is where this is where you kind of have to do your own math, and I apologize. I should have been a little more strict about the cuts, but let's see. But this piece is going to be cut to 2 1/4, so I'm going to do that. Sorry, wrong way. So this one's going to be 2 1/4. And again, I am cutting from one of the cover sheets because this is the inside of the back cover. So again, it's a little wider. So that will fit there nicely. And then you're just going to kind of eyeball this one. I want a little bit of the background, the white cardstock showing above this pocket, but otherwise I'm just going to make a mark with my finger of where I want to cut it. And you can use a pencil or, you know, kind of if you have some pattern element that is key, then you can do that. But I often use my thumb nail and just make a mark. And I'm just going to cut that down again at that mark. And then again, if you don't like how it looks, you can trim it down a little bit more. But there you have it. That's how you do that. And then, of course, we have some blank space here. We're going to want a tiny bit of blank space at the top of this pocket. So we are going to end up cutting this down just a little bit. And you can do the same thing where you mark it with your pencil or your finger and cut that down a little bit. And there we go. So I just wanted to demonstrate that you do have to fuss a little around the pockets. Alternately, don't put in pockets. You can just lay something flat down there. So I'm going to go ahead, put these in here. and cover my book now, and I'll probably run this pretty quick, and stop if I have anything interesting to say. You'll see me fuss with my magnet first and get that all situated, and then I'm just going to go through and cover the book, and then come back with some of the stickers. So now our book is constructed and covered and starting to shape up. Still have some tags to create for the top loading pockets and tags for these side pockets and something to maybe fill one or two of the pockets that are on the front and back cover. And then I'll go through with the chipboard and the stickers and just decorate it a little bit. Like I said, I'm planning on putting a shaker on, but I'm going to make the shaker independent of the cover. That way I have a, you know, just kind of a opportunity to fix it up and make sure that it looks the way I want it to without it already being adhered on the cover of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll do a flip through at the very end, which is next. So just hang tight, and if you like this video so far, please give it a thumbs up.